Hello and welcome to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and this is my weekly reading wrap-up. Normally in the last weekly reading wrap-up of the month, I try to also kind of wrap up the whole month and do a recap. But this time I think I'm going to bump that to my Wednesday video because it's already Sunday afternoon and I already have 2 books to talk about, and I'm sort of hoping that I will read at least 2 more books this week because I'm off and I might have more time. We'll see. So I'm thinking this video will be long enough with recaps. I should probably not try to add to it with reviewing the whole month at large. So, that's the plan. To begin with, last night, it's Sunday afternoon, by the way, and my husband is outside working on putting up the Christmas lights, so he's like climbing on the roof and stuff. So if you hear bumps and scrapes and whatever kinds of sounds, that's him out there doing that. So last night, I ended up actually having some downtime, which was wonderful. And so I obviously did a little reading with my downtime because it had been a while since I'd had time to just sit and read and not just, read a chapter here and there. So I finished 2 books. So I am starting this week with a clean slate of reading time, and it's going to be wonderful. I'm really looking forward to it. So the books that I finished last night are A Tangled Web and Bridge to Haven. A Tangled Web was for the Montgomery readathon. It was the group read, and it's probably the only thing I will get done in that reading challenge. I did enjoy reading it, and reading all of Lucy Maud Montgomery's catalog, or more like rereading it, because I think I read most of them when I was a teenager, is one of my things that I want to do, one of my reading goals. So I was happy to be able to cross this one off the list, and this is one I don't remember having read before, so I think it was new to me. And it was interesting. It not the typical Lucy Maud Montgomery style of writing. For one, there's a huge cast of characters. Now, she might have like a huge cast of characters in her books. Like in the Anne series, there's the Avonlea folks, but she's always meeting new people. And then when she goes to Kingsport, and then when she goes to the other places where she's going to college, and then she's teaching and all of this stuff, she meets new people or whatever. So they come into her life. So that in itself is not new, I guess, but there wasn't really a focal point character. You're really following these 2 intertwined families or clans, and you're following their lives and their stories over the course of a whole year. And the narrative kind of skips around between them. So you get a chapter or 2 here on this storyline between these characters, and then the next couple chapters, sections of chapters. There's really only 6 chapters, but each chapter is subdivided into these sections, 8, 9, 10, whatever sections. So you get a couple of sections that are dealing with one set of characters, and then a couple sections dealing with a different set of, anyway, so going around to all the different stories. It was honestly a little bit difficult to keep track of all of the various characters, but they were all interesting stories and humorous, and occasionally zany characters doing zany things. There's what do they call him? The Moon Man, kind of a harmless, crazy guy in the town, and you never know what he's going to say or what he's going to do. Sometimes he has these, really insightful things that he just randomly says to one of the characters, and sometimes he says things and they're like, what? Or he does things and you're like, what? So that's interesting. Always Lucy Maud Montgomery has some very interesting characterization. So that's definitely happening here. I was trying to kind of catch like an overarching thread in the story. And if there is one, which I'm sure there is, I'm sure that she didn't just, write these random collection of stories just to do that. I'm sure that she has some kind of unifying thread. I'm not sure that I've 100% pinpointed it, but it seemed like she was kind of exploring the concept of what you wish for and what you actually have or what you get. And if we really want what we wish for. Because a lot of the characters in this story, they are wishing for one thing or another, or they're wanting one thing or another to happen. And then sometimes that thing happens and it doesn't turn out quite like they expected, and they realize that's not actually what they really wanted. And sometimes they don't get what they really wanted, but they find out that what they get instead was something better than what they had originally wanted. So it's really an interesting exploration of that idea. Like, you know, we wish for many things, but should we really want the things that we're wishing for? If they actually happen to us, would they make us happy? Would they fulfill us? Would it really be what we really wanted if we got what we wanted? So that was interesting. I enjoyed it overall. It's not my favorite Lucy Montgomery book. I kind of prefer the ones where she's focused on a character, even if there are a lot of other characters that you're introduced to. It's a lot easier just to keep track of one person's storyline and what's going on in their life. And I think it's easier to make like a fully fleshed out story that way. But for what it was, that was interesting and I enjoyed it. And then I read A Bridge to Haven with Francine Rivers with Alma, and it was so good. I really enjoyed it. Now, I was reading a lot of reviews afterwards, and a lot of people were saying that basically it's a recycled Redeeming Love. And there's truth to that. I didn't see it that way in a negative way. I saw it as this being, having a lot of similarity to Redeeming Love. So, I mean, you can look at that from a positive or a negative viewpoint, but it definitely has some similarities to the Redeeming Love story because she's working from a similar thing. She was starting with a verse, she says in her author's note, the inspiration for Bridge to Haven came from Ezekiel 16, where God speaks of his chosen people as an unwanted newborn whom he cared for, watched over, and eventually chose as his bride despite their rejection of him. And that's kind of what happens in the story. This girl she is abandoned by her mother and left for dead. She is found by a local pastor and he brings her into his family and adopts her. But then from there, things happen and she rejects her family. She rejects their love. She thinks that they don't love her. And so she is trying to pursue her own happiness with other people, but all of them actually want to use her. They don't actually love her. And so she ends up being hurt and hurting other people in turn and making really bad choices. And eventually the story comes full circle. And obviously, eventually it is a redemptive story that ends on a hopeful note. And so it ends up being fully redemptive, like Redeeming Love is, and a beautiful story. It is set in 1950s California, and a large part of it is in Hollywood, and then the other part of it is in this small town called Haven. And that was really interesting. I put that on my Historathon bingo board as being an era that I had not read as much from, because there are a lot of World War II era books, but there aren't a lot of books set in the 50s. In particular, I have not personally read a lot that are set in Hollywood in the 50s, which was a really interesting time. I don't think that Hollywood has changed that much since then. I don't know. I have zero personal experience with the world of Hollywood, but from what I've heard, I don't think it's changed all that much. The things that go on there as far as how stars rise to their position, the jockeying that happens, and the taking advantage of people and the bribery and all of that kind of stuff that goes on. So you kind of get like a bit of an inside peek at that. It had shades of like Judy Garland's story in it for me, reminded me a lot of her story. So anyway, it was interesting. It was heartbreaking at times and made me cry in a couple of places, but ultimately was hopeful and redemptive and definitely had strong vibes of the prodigal son kind of storyline. So definitely worthwhile reading. I have enjoyed everything that I have read by Francine Rivers. I have a few more books by her to read. She's one of the authors I'm trying to read her entire backlist. And so I was happy to be able to cross this one off. That was a personal goal for me. Plus it fit for the Historathon. And A Tangled Web also, I put it on the C.S. Lewis Readathon. Morgan pointed out that it could fit for Inspired by Lewis because C.S. Lewis was a voracious reader and would have read most of the books that were popular in his time and or published before his time. He would have read them, especially a prominent author like Lucy Maud Montgomery. It's highly likely he would have at least read some of her works. Would he have read that one? I don't know. I actually kind of feel like it's a story exploring things that he would probably have been interested in. So I don't know. Did it inspire him? Not definitively, but we're going to go with that. Okay. And then Bridge to Haven also crossed off the one for stubborn character because, my goodness, the main character in there, whew, she was a stubborn one for sure. So I am picking up the Scarlet Pimpernel. I am going to do another roll in my bucket list-a-thon game and get a 5th book started with that. I have no idea yet what, because I haven't rolled it yet, but hopefully knock something else off my TBR. And I'm hoping to make up for lost time this week in November. Wish me luck. And I'll see you in my next clip. Bye. I made 4 pies for my neighbors. This one is a fudge pie, which was from Joy of Cooking vintage cookbook that I have, and it actually seemed to be more like a brownie pie. And then this is a pecan pie. I used the traditional recipe on the King Arthur Flour Baking Company site. It doesn't use any corn syrup, so it's a little bit different, I think, in texture than a pecan pie that we're typically used to, but it gets rave reviews. I kind of wish that this was for us so I could eat it because it looks amazing. And then this is a pumpkin pie, and I really hate that I had to like stick a knife in there to see if it was done. It was taking forever to cook. This was a vintage recipe, so it has an ugly hole in it, but I kind of don't want to top it with whipped cream, which is how I would serve it if I was at home. So I'm just going to give it to them with a little hole in the top, I guess. And then this, isn't that beautiful? It turned out so gorgeous. That is a cranberry apple pie. I hate cooked apples and I hate apple pie, but that looks pretty beautiful. And then I had some leftover sourdough starter. So I used it to make some banana bread. And my loaf pan, which is somewhere not over here, is kind of on the smaller side. So I had a lot of extra batter left. So I made these little mini ones. So these are the pies for our neighbors. I also made 2 pies for our Thanksgiving. This one is a butterscotch cream pie, which I have just made the plain butterscotch cream pie before, even though the recipe calls to have a meringue topping, but this is the first time I actually made the meringue topping. So sorry, I got interrupted. I have no idea what I was saying. But anyways, this time around, I tried to make it with meringue. I'm afraid that the meringue will be all weepy and stuff and it will be beautiful by tomorrow. So that's why I don't usually make the meringue, but I did this time. We'll see. I also hope that the butterscotch part sets. That's always a little bit tricky. I've definitely had years when that hasn't happened. This is a mocha cream pie chilling in the fridge. It's got a mocha cream pie filling and then a marshmallow mocha topping. I don't know how to describe it really. It's a combination of 2 different recipes from 2 different vintage cookbooks, and it tastes amazing. But once again, I'm a little bit concerned about the setting of it. Like, see how jiggly that is? But I mean, hasn't been in the fridge real long, so. There's our giant turkey that my husband smoked, chilling in the fridge until tomorrow. Hello, it is Wednesday evening, and as you have seen, I have been very busy today. I basically worked a full day, but at home in my kitchen, and which was actually a lot more physically active than my job, at my actual job. So I am tired, but I'm excited because my husband and I are going to go see Wicked tonight, and I'm very excited about that. And I will do my best to refrain from singing during the movie. I'll try. But yes, I'm very excited about that. And of course, tomorrow is Thanksgiving. And yeah, so this video I feel like is going to be really long. So I just apologize right here in the middle of all of that. And I'll try to be brief today, even though I'm very excited about the books that I am going to share with you that I read. I guess I kind of had a bit of a reading slump for most of November because I was working through a couple of books and it was taking me a long time to work through them. Plus, you know, I was really busy last week helping my sister and everything. So I didn't realize that I was kind of feeling slumpy, and I was filling in the information in my reading journal and realizing that I hadn't read any books that were like, wow, that was amazing. A Bridge to Haven by Francine Rivers came close. It was really good and I enjoyed it. But none of the books were like, oh, it was so good. Like really kept me reading and engaged. Until this week. But that might be because I was finally able to relax. So it may have had more to do with environment and situation than the actual books. But I definitely enjoyed my reading so far earlier this week. And I just read so much already. So I finished on Monday, The Scarlet Pimpernel, and I read this in less than 24 hours. So if you want to read a classic that doesn't feel like a classic, The Scarlet Pimpernel is it. It was written in 1905, but to me, it doesn't really feel like it. It moves along so quickly. There's enough action and suspense and melodrama to keep you reading and wanting to know what happens. It definitely reads like a modern story and not like a classic. It doesn't have the heavy literary touch of a classic. And there are also, which I kind of knew, but I looked up on Monday to see, and I didn't realize how many there are. There are a lot of books in this series by Baroness Orczy. So, and they all get really good ratings on Goodreads. Not a lot of ratings, but the people who read it and rate it, they have at least 4 stars, which is really good. So it seems like the other books in this series are just as good as this one. So I do want to read some more in this series. I also want to read a book that is based on this story, like a retelling, called Scarlet. And I forget the name of the author, but I wanted to read this one first, but that's definitely going to be on my radar coming up soon here. So I love The Scarlet Pimpernel. So this fit for the Historathon, for the book with an adaptation. And I also watched part of the 1999 BBC TV miniseries adaptation. And it was really good as far as acting and casting and things like that, and the videography, all of that stuff. It was good. I was enjoying it. But since I was literally in the middle of reading the book when I was watching that, I was a little bit frustrated by how far it deviated from the storyline and how much they just created out of thin air. To be fair, they may have taken from the other books in the series that I haven't read yet, so I don't know. And also there was some content in there that made me raise my eyebrows really high, and I was like, that was unnecessary. It was good, but it wasn't, I don't know, I watched about half of the first installment, and I don't particularly need to go back and watch anymore. There's also a 1982, I think, movie, which was my first experience with The Scarlet Pimpernel. But that is a really good, I mean, it's in the 80s, so, you know, film quality is not, you know, up to date. But it's a really good movie. I highly recommend that adaptation. Haven't watched it in a while, but I have fond memories. There's also musical adaptation, which is really fun, and you can watch the entire thing on YouTube. That fits for the adaptation. I also went ahead, because it was the only square left, and I also marked off social issues, cultural issues box that was on the bingo board, because this deals with the French Revolution. It deals with the attitudes regarding the aristocracy at the time in both England and France, and it kind of examines, but not heavily, because it's not that kind of book. It's not really looking heavily into what went into the French Revolution, but it is examining the attitudes of class in England and in France, and liberty, and what that means and what it looks like, and where the French Revolution went awry, whatever. It does touch on that, and it does deal with it very deftly, not with a heavy hand. So I marked off that box as well. And then on Tuesday, while I was sitting with my sister. She was sleeping, so I finished reading Lady Susan by Jane Austen, which was the final book that I needed to read to complete my entire reread of all of Jane Austen's works, including all of her full-length novels and her juvenilia and everything she's written. I've read it all at least twice now, except for her letters. I don't intend to read those again necessarily, but all of her literary work I have read now more than once. And I really enjoyed Lady Susan. It's short, it's like 60 pages. Okay, my phone ran out of storage. And so I have no idea where I was or what I was saying. So this book, Lady Susan, Jane Austen, really enjoyed it. Now, it is very different from everything else Jane Austen wrote, so I wouldn't start with it. But it definitely showcases her brilliance, in my opinion. She initially wrote it when she was about 20 years old, and then she recopied it, like made a clean copy, I think like 5 years later. Perhaps she was intending to try to sell it for publication, but she never did. And there are probably good reasons why. One, it is written in an epistolary style. So this is a good one for Epistolary January coming up. And that was beginning to go out of fashion by the beginning of the 19th century. Whereas when she had first written it, when, 5-10 years before then, it was still pretty popular. And that's why she initially wrote this one and Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, all in epistolary style. But then she rewrote Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility in a regular narration, probably because epistolary was going out of style and she recognized the limitations of the epistolary format and wanted to tell a fuller story. So there's that. It is in the epistolary style. Also, the main character is the opposite of a heroine. Like she is not a good person. She is, today we would call her a narcissistic sociopath. But what I love is that Jane Austen just captures the essence of that kind of person so perfectly. Now, I don't have personal experience really with people like that, at least not to that extent. I only have heard stories of people who have had to live with people like that or have had experience with that kind of person. And I just feel like she really nailed it, maybe slightly exaggerated it, but she obviously was understanding that kind of personality. And it was so interesting because you see the letters that Lady Susan, who is the main character, the letters she is writing to different people in her life. And she presents a very different persona depending on who she is writing to. And her real self is only revealed when she's writing to her most intimate friend. And she and her friend are two peas in a pod. They're just alike. And they're both self-centered, self-absorbed, only seeking for pleasure and gratification in the moment. And they have no thought for anybody else. They're completely self-absorbed. We see her real self when she is writing letters to her friend, but to everybody else, she presents a false face. And it's all about how she charms people, even sensible people who should know better or who knew her shortcomings before they met her, so they were prepared to dislike her. But it's all about how she's able to charm them into loving her and discounting what they had previously heard about her. And she just has a way of excusing it all and gaslighting them. And it's just really well written in that way. And the fact that it is so well written and being all epistolary, it was just amazing. Now, I don't think that Jane Austen herself was very satisfied with the epistolary format because she concludes the story with a third-person narrative and kind of ties up all of the knots, like she does in all of her books. Like she closes off each story thread in a satisfactory way. And obviously she felt that letters would not accomplish that sufficiently. And also because, she mentions that there were things that took place in person meetings that were not written about, that tied up the story, whatever. So she had to wrap it up. without the benefit of letters. But then again, she never took the time to rework this story in a traditional narration style, unlike Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility. So it may be that she felt like the main character was a little bit too scandalous and salacious for her audience at that time, which was probably true. Because I think that earlier in the 18th century, it would have been much more well accepted. But in the 19th century, I think it would have been put in a different category, and it would not have been seen as a literary book to be valued. It would have been considered more like, you know, a popcorn read or a brain candy, you know, that kind of thing. Like not, you know, like just a everyday book, a sensational novel, you know, that kind of thing. Not something of serious value. But I think Jane Austen's grasp of human nature is just magnificent. And my favorite character in this story is Mrs. Vernon, who is kind of the foil to Lady Susan. She's the exact opposite of her. She is a common sense, practical person, clear-sighted. She sees right through Lady Susan, and she's never distracted by her charm or her ability to manipulate people. She sees right through all of it. And at the same time, she is compassionate and caring for her own family and for Lady Susan's daughter, who Lady Susan neglects horribly. And she's just a really wonderful person. And I just really, I don't know, I just clicked with her as a character and really enjoyed reading her letters that she was writing to her mom about Lady Susan and all of this stuff. Anyway, I enjoyed it thoroughly. Jane Austen is just the master. The master. She just is. Can't beat her. And I'm currently reading this. This will finally give me bingo on my S Lewis Readathon board. I have read 5 books so far, but I don't have a bingo. But this one will connect 2 lines, and so I'll have 2 bingos to finish up the month with. And I think that's probably all that I'm going to get. I don't think I will get the other 3 books by the end of November. Maybe, but I kind of doubt it at this point. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I am currently reading this, and it is not that long, you can see, and I'm about a quarter of the way through it. And I had read this a long time ago when I was in school, in high school, and it was assigned reading for me. And I remember being really impressed by this gentleman, David Brainerd. He goes and serves as a missionary to the Native Americans in Pennsylvania somewhere, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, etc. And it's basically from his diaries, his writings. So this is another one that would work for Epistolary January if you would be interested in that. It won't take long to read. So who knows what else I will get up to the rest of this week. I did not read hardly anything today because I was so busy. And tomorrow I probably will get some reading done. Tomorrow will be a slower day, but then I don't know about Friday and Saturday. So we'll see how much more reading I actually get done, and I will be back with another clip, I'm sure. It is Thursday evening, so Thanksgiving night. I hope everyone had a very happy Thanksgiving. We went up to my in-laws in Maryland for the day, and then we came back and had second dessert and watched Home Alone 2 with my sisters. So we are now back from that and are finished our celebrating and are about ready to plan our Black Friday adventure. I've been wanting since last night to share my thoughts about Wicked, and also I finished reading another book. So first of all, about Wicked, I am so glad that I went to see it. I did not realize, because I was completely out of the loop. All I knew was that it was in theaters. That's really all I knew. I was out of the loop and did not realize that it was only the first half. Like, it ends with defying gravity. So a little bit of a cliffhanger there. I mean, you know, if you know what's gonna happen, but as we were watching it, I was like, wow, there's a lot more left to this story. How are we going to finish the story? We didn't. It was really good. I actually felt like the casting of Ariana Grande was great for Glinda. I feel like her voice really worked well with that role. And I actually thought overall the casting was pretty good. Some musicals, when they become movies, like, star power and acting prowess takes precedence over singing ability, which is unfortunate because depending on the musical, like, singing ability is really essential. And I feel like in the case of Les Mis, like, I wasn't a big fan of the movie version. and I much prefer the musical version. But Wicked, I thought that overall the casting was good, and the people who were weaker in terms of, you know, vocal sound had minor singing parts, at least so far. So I felt like the main people who do most of the singing were really well cast as far as that goes. So I appreciated that, because that is a big part of, you know, it's a musical. So the music part should be enjoyable. And the acting was fine. There were some things that I thought were a little bit cringe, particularly with Ariana Grande. Elphaba, oh, I'm so sorry, the name of the actress is escaping me. I thought that her acting was really well done. But Ariana Grande was a little bit cringe sometimes, but pretty well otherwise. Like, it wasn't horrible. And then there was some added subtext, if you will, that is not in the musical, at least not when you are sitting up in the cheap seats and watching from a distance. You don't catch any of it, so maybe it's there. I just never saw it before. But when it's up close and examined on the movie screen, there was some that I didn't appreciate, but it wasn't in the words per se, or, you know, lyrics or anything like that. It was in the costuming and the interaction between characters and the blocking and the staging, all that stuff. So that's why I say, like, subtext, like, you could see it one way and you could see it another. The main song that it bothered me was Dancing Through Life, where Fiyero is, you know, presenting his philosophy of, you know, living a carefree life and not sweating about anything. In the musical version, you know, I feel like it's just established in that song that he is a very popular character, and, you know, everybody loves him. And I felt like they took it a slightly different direction in this one, based on the way that they were, like, the interactions and the looks and the visual of everything. It seemed like, rather than everybody, you know, like, just loved him, like, you know, oh, he's a fun, charming guy, you know, we all love him, you know, like, we use the word love that guy, that they were all, like, in love with him, or lust might be a better word, and, like, all of them, everybody in the song. And it was just a little bit ick for me personally. It was a little over the top. However, in that particular scene, it's set in the library at Shiz University, and the way they did the library for the movie, the set there was amazing. And so you can just spend that whole song just looking at the library, look at the set design, look at all the things that they're doing in the library. Pay attention to that, and don't worry about the interaction of the characters while they're singing the song. That's not important. The library is amazing. Totally worth seeing just for that alone, because the library was really cool. So that was Wicked. I enjoyed it overall, and glad I saw it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next half of it whenever that comes out. Don't even know when it's coming out. I know nothing. I did finish a book. I read If I'm Being Honest by none other than our own Courtney at Courtney Reads. She has a YouTube channel, and she is also an author, and she has a series of contemporary romance novels. And this particular one, she had it on sale, I think, a few weeks back, and it's her most recent release, I believe, and it was set at Thanksgiving time. So that was my holiday read, and I really enjoyed it. So well done, Courtney. I really loved reading it. I think I give it like 3.5, 4 stars on Goodreads. It was very well done. It wasn't like your typical shallow contemporary romance. There was a lot of depth to it, a lot of depth to the characters, and there was a lot of character development and growth, and the relationship was believable. The guy was maybe a little bit too perfect, but he was perfect for the girl, main character, was exactly what she needed. And so it was a very sweet story, and I really enjoyed reading it. So that was my fun read for Thanksgiving, and it was fantastic. So thank you, Courtney, for that. And I will put a link to her channel and where you can buy her books, so you can go check that one out for yourself. This one, it begins at Thanksgiving time, and then it ends, I think, at Christmas. If I remember correctly, I was finishing it up yesterday, and I feel like it ended at Christmas time. I don't know, my brain is like, so that was my Thanksgiving. Tomorrow is Black Friday, and then Saturday is we're going to go cut down our tree and decorate it. So I don't know if we will get any more reading done or not. I was debating what to do, if I should do another roll on my bucket list-a-thon, but I decided not to because I have 4 more rolls on that and I'm going to save them for December. And I still have 3 spots left on my C.S. Lewis bingo board. So I want to do at least 1 more for that. So for the sci-fi square, I saw that I can get Across the Ages by Gabrielle Meyer through my library digitally. So I already checked that out and I'm going to be starting that almost as soon as I'm done here. And I will hopefully get that done by the weekend, depending on how much time I have to read. So we're looking forward to reading that one. And then I'm actually pretty happy because then that will be a total of 7 out of 9 spaces, which I thought was impossible up until this week. But thankfully this week has redeemed my November in terms of reading for me. So that's been great. So I may not do any more clips because already this is kind of long. I may just bump anything else I read to the next weekly reading wrap up. So this isn't too much. Anyways, have a good week and I will see you next time. Bye. Friday evening, and this will be my final clip, I promise. So I just wanted to show you a couple of things. We went and did a little bit of Black Friday shopping today, and I'm not showing you things we got that we just did like Christmas shopping, but we did go to the brand new Lint store in the outlets in our town. I forgot that they were opening today, and we were literally just walking down the sidewalk, and there it was in front of me, and I was like, oh, that's right. It is one of my favorite stores. So we went and we got some fun things there. But then on our way home, we stopped at a thrift store and everything in the store was half off, including like Christmas decorations and stuff. So I got some ribbon and some things for wrapping Christmas presents, but they also had this mug there. This is one of those, the Unemployed Philosophers Guild. They have different bookish mugs. I've had a couple of different kinds. This one is Shakespearean insults. And so, roast meat for worms, O gull, O dolt, as ignorant as dirt, clod of wayward moral, lump of foul deformity, quintessence of dust. So that was super fun. And it was marked $1, which means I got it for 50 cents. When we got home, I had some mail waiting for me. So from Penguin Books, I got this, A Vintage Christmas, which is a lovely cover. It's unfortunately paperback, but I'm not sure that they make this in a hardback edition. I only saw the paperback on Penguin Books, but it is a collection. I mentioned it in my December TBR. It is a collection of classic Christmas stories and poems. So I will be reading from that in December. And actually the last time I was at that same thrift store where I got the mug last week, I picked up this book, which seemed kind of interesting. I feel like I've heard of it before, but I don't know much about it. It's called The Singer by Calvin Miller. And it says, The Singer is a narrative in the tradition of C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, a retelling of an age-old story whose significance is unmatched in human history. So it's written like this, not exactly in poem format, but still kind of not exactly straight narrative either. Poetic prose, I don't know what we would call that. And it's an allegory. So I thought it looked very interesting. So I picked it up and it was like 50 cents or something like that. But then I had some more mail waiting for me today, and this I got mostly for work, but one of these in particular, I will enjoy reading for myself. So at work with my 8th grade class for December, I am going to assign them a project where they have to research a Christmas carol and present their findings to the class. They have to do some accompanying artwork that goes with it. And they also have to perform the song in some way or other. That's not going to be their favorite part, but it'll be good for them. Anyways, so they're going to work in teams and work on it together. So I had to get some books that they could use as hands-on resources because it all has to be done in class and we won't be using computers or anything. I'm going to print out some articles for them for the various hymns and carols, but I am also going to bring in some books so that they have resources to use on hand. So this one is Best Loved Christmas Carols, the stories behind 25 Yuletide favorites, and it is a beautiful hardback with a slipcover and has glossy pages with full color paintings on some of the pages and the most common Christmas carols. So that is just a beautiful resource and a book to have on hand. This one I have been wanting to read for a while. I actually have it on my Kindle, but I keep forgetting about it, so I haven't read it. But now that I have a hard copy, and now that my students will be using it, I will get some more use out of it. This is Andrew Gant's The Carols of Christmas, a celebration of the surprising stories behind your favorite holiday songs. I think some people even considered it maybe a little bit dry, but I actually thought that was kind of perfect. It's still only, you know, one chapter for each song, so it's appropriate for my students to use, but it hopefully is more informative and has exactly what they need. And it also has sheet music in there for the hymns. So there's good consensus. And I just really love that cover. And this one, it's not a slip cover. So this is the cover, if that makes sense. And then the last one, Come Let Us Adore Him, Stories Behind the Most Cherished Christmas Hymns by Robert J. Morgan, best-selling author of Then Sings My Soul, which I believe Then Sings My Soul is one that I have used as a devotional book. And that is just about hymns in general. And this one has beautiful pages with red and green ink. And I think this one is maybe not as informative. Like it's just a 2-page spread with, and this isn't a very big book, with just the most basic historic information, but it will serve as an additional resource that the students can use and cross-check information. It even has a simplified, very simplified version of the Hallelujah course. So that's fun. So that is my haul for this week. And this is my final signing off for the week. And next video starting this week, I'm going to be doing not really Vlogmas or Bookmas, but I am going to have some extra videos. I've already pre-filmed tag videos for the next 3 Tuesdays, and then I will have regular videos on Thursdays instead of my usual Wednesday. And I have a couple of things lined up, mostly like looking forward to next year, my plans for next year and stuff like that. So I will have a little bit of extra content, at least the first 3 weeks of December. I haven't decided yet if I will have anything the last week of December and the week of Christmas. We'll see if I do anything that week or not. I haven't made up my mind yet. We'll see. Kind of depends on how my December goes. So anyway, I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We had a great Thanksgiving, and I will see you next time. Bye.